welcome to DevOps Real-Time Project Series. My name is Kastro Kiran. In this video, we are going to see how to do a production level deployment of an application using Jenkins multi-branch pipeline concept and the GitOps approach to do the deployment into the Kubernetes cluster. The main features of this particular project are we are going to create a multi-branch pipeline where CI activity will be performed by the Jenkins and CD activity will be performed by the ArgoCD, and we will also integrate the GitHub pull request. And finally, we are going to close this project by doing the monitoring of the application. Let me explain the pipeline flow of this particular project. Initially, a developer will be there. Developer will write the source code of the application, and that code will be pushed to the GitHub repository, especially to the main branch of the application. Now, once the code is available in the main branch of the application will be deployed into the Kubernetes cluster by using Jenkins to perform the CI activity and ArgoCD to perform the CD activity. Now, once version 1 of the application is currently running, let's say developer wants to update the code. So when developer wants to update the code, what developer will do is developer will create the feature branch by using the main branch. So here developer wants to update the code, and that updated code will be pushed to the feature A branch, which is available in the GitHub repository. Once developer pushes the code to the feature A branch, then he will raise a pull request. Once the pull request is raised, for every GitHub repository, there will be a GitHub admin who is going to review the changes. Once the changes are reviewed and once the changes are sufficient enough, then the GitHub admin will be merging the code to the main branch of the repository. Once the code is merged to the main branch of the repository, one more time, the pipeline will be triggered and we will be able to see a new application or the new features of the application in the real time. Like these, whenever developer wants to update the code, developer is going to create a feature branch from the main branch of the application, and then he is going to push the code to feature B branch, upon which developer will raise the pull request. Once the pull request is raised, GitHub admin is going to review the changes. Once the changes are sufficient enough, GitHub admin will merge the code from feature B branch to the main branch. This is how the production level deployment will happen in the real-time scenarios. And this project completely focuses on from the scratch to the end of this entire workflow process. I hope you got the workflow of this entire project. This is the same workflow which we are going to implement throughout this project in a while. So here, this entire workflow, as I said, we are going to do it in two ways. One is by doing CI, where Jenkins will perform the CI activity, where it is going to pull the code from the GitHub repository and then creates a Docker image, tags that Docker image, and then pushes the Docker image to the Docker Hub. Once the image is available in the Docker Hub, then ArgoCD will perform the deployment activity, that is continuous deployment, into the Kubernetes cluster. Here, whenever developer updates the code, the CI activity will perform and CD activity will also be performed. But the most important thing is we need to update the image version manually in the deployment YML file. But in real-time scenarios, we don't manually update the image version in the deployment manifest files. So for this, we are going to write the Jenkins pipeline where we are going to automate the image version to get updated in the deployment YML file whenever the updates are going to happen. This entire process, we are going to see it practically in a while. Let's go to the AWS console and let's set up the infrastructure, whatever is required to do this project, and then we'll slowly progress towards the final end goal of this project. So this is the repository structure which we are going to maintain in the main branch of the repository. So in this, we are going to create one GitHub repository. In the GitHub repository, we are going to create app.py file, requirements.txt file, the Docker file for the Python application, Jenkins file for the CI activity. And then in a Kubernetes folder, we are going to keep the deployment YML file and the service manifest file. Along with this, for ArgoCD, we are going to create one more application.yml file where we are going to configure the entire application in the ArgoCD. And the most important thing is these three things will be available only in the main branch of the application. Whereas these things will be changed based upon the feature branches that developers are going to create. Accordingly, all these files will come into the feature branch as well. So this project is basically a Python application where we are going to deploy into the Kubernetes cluster. So first, let us set up the infrastructure for this application deployment process. So I'm going to the AWS console. Particularly, I'll be there in the North Virginia region. You can create the resources in any region of your convenience. So let us navigate to the EC2 service, which I'm currently there. In the EC2, we are going to launch one Ubuntu instance. I am going to use the Ubuntu 24.04, which is the latest version, and with the instance type as t2.large instance. Here I'm going to name the instance as EKS server. You can give any name to the instance. This is just a name to the instance. And then Ubuntu as the AMI, and the AMI type specifically, I'm going to use 24.04, which is the latest one. And whatever commands that I have, all those commands belongs to Ubuntu server. If you're launching Amazon Linux instance, I want you to refer the official documentation to get the required commands. And instance type, we are going to use t2.large instance because we are going to install Prometheus and Grafana in the same instance. In real time, we usually maintain different servers for monitoring and different servers for the other parts of the application deployment. But here, since we are in the practice stage, we can keep everything in the same instance as well. So for that reason, I'm going with the t2.large instance where I'll install Jenkins and all other required tools configuration will be done inside this instance itself. And key pair, if you want, you can create a new key pair by entering the name of the key pair type as RSA, and the private key file format as .pem. The reason why I'm going to choose .pem is I'll be using MobiXterm to connect to that EC2 instance. If you are good at connecting to the instance using putty and puttygen, I would prefer you to go with ppk file. But in this demo, I'll be using the PEM file so that I'll be using to connect the instance using the MobiXterm. Anyway, I already have the key pair, so I'll cancel creating a new key pair. When you are practicing, you can create a new key pair, or otherwise you can select one of the existing key pairs. So I'm going to select one of the existing key pairs, which is a PEM file format. And the security group, I'm going to create a new security group with the default settings. And the storage wise, I'm going to go with 30 GB of maximum storage, and then click on launch instance. Once the instance is launched, we are going to connect to that instance using MobiXterm, that is by using the public IP address of that particular instance. So let us go to the instances console and let's get the public IP address of this particular instance. So select the instance, copy the public IP address of the instance, and then go to MobiXterm, session, SSH, and in the place of remote host, place the public IP address of the instance. Username for Ubuntu instances is Ubuntu. Suppose if you have launched Amazon Linux instance, in that case, the username will be EC2-user. So click on Advanced SSH Settings, use private key, and then select the PEM file, whichever you have used to launch that particular EC2 instance. And then click on OK, so that you will be able to connect with that particular instance. Once after you connect with the instance, the basic thing that we have to do is switch to the root user, that is by using sudo su, and then update the packages before you install anything, which is actually an essential part, especially for Ubuntu-based instance. Even for Amazon Linux also it is essential, but especially if you are working with Ubuntu-based instances, it is always recommended to install or to update or upgrade the existing packages. So the packages has got updated. Now let us install Jenkins in this instance. So in order to install Jenkins, what I am doing is I'm going to create one shell file, and inside that shell file, I'm going to keep all the commands related to the Jenkins. So let me keep all the commands inside that jenkins.sh file, paste the commands, and then escape :wq. So come out of the file. Now let's execute this particular shell file called jenkins.sh so that Jenkins will be installed. Meanwhile, what we will do is, since Jenkins is going to run on port number 8080, so let us open that port number 8080 in the security group of this instance. So I'm opening the security group in a new tab, and here we are going to edit the inbound rules, where we are going to add the rule with port number 8080. So click on edit inbound rules and then add rule. Type is custom TCP. The port range is 8080, source anywhere IPv4, and then click on save rules. Once the rules are saved, and if the Jenkins is installed, then we can access Jenkins using the public IP address of that particular instance. So let us verify whether Jenkins is done or not. Yeah, Jenkins installation is completed. So let me copy the public IP address of this instance and then go to a new tab in the mobile external, paste the public IP address :8080, so that we'll be able to see the Jenkins unlock page, where we are going to get the administrator password to unlock Jenkins. So in order to unlock Jenkins, the administrator password will be available in this particular location. So let me copy this entire path, and then we'll use cat command to print the data that is available in a file called initial admin password. This is the file where you have the admin password to unlock Jenkins. This file is available in this particular path. Right. Hit enter so that you will see the administrator password. So copy this administrator password and then paste here so that Jenkins will get unlocked. And now you need to install the suggested plugins. So by default, Jenkins will install some plugins. In the later cases, we are going to install customized plugins according to our requirement. So just click on install suggested plugins so that all the plugins, all the default plugins will get installed by the Jenkins. Once everything is done, then we are going to set up one thing, which is the user, the admin account information or the admin details to access Jenkins. So for these, we need to provide the username and couple of other details like email ID, password, and all of those things. So let us set up that part as well. So I'm just going to give the username as password, username as Kastro, password of whatever your requirement, and then confirm the password, give the full name, and then provide one email ID. And then click on save and continue, and click on start using Jenkins so that you will be able to see the Jenkins homepage. So click on save and finish, and then click on start using Jenkins. So with this, the Jenkins setup is ready. We'll come back to this Jenkins console in a while. Meanwhile, what we will do is we are going to install Docker as well, because Docker is used to build the Docker images and then to tag that image and to push that image to the Docker hub. So for that reason, I'm going to create one more shell file called docker.sh, and inside this shell file, I'm going to keep all the commands which are related to the installation of Docker. So let me keep all these commands inside this shell file. Press escape :wq. So let's execute the docker.sh file so that Docker will get installed in the EC2 instance. Once Docker is installed, let us just verify whether Docker is successfully installed or not. Docker space -- version. So let me just see Docker hasn't got installed. So let me install with this particular command apt install docker.io so that Docker will get installed. So let me press Y to confirm so that the Docker installation will be done. So I'll update these commands. Probably some issue is there with the commands. Anyway, I'll update these commands of Docker. So let's verify whether Docker is working or not. Docker space -- version. So you can see Docker is fine. And then if you do any Docker commands like Docker images, Docker ps, the commands are working fine, which means the Docker is installed successfully. Now, the next thing that we have to do is in the same EC2 instance, we are going to install Kubernetes related components such as AWS CLI, EKS CTL, and kubectl. AWS CLI is to connect with the AWS account and then execute the AWS related commands in the EC2 instance. kubectl is to interact with the Kubernetes cluster, especially the EKS cluster in AWS, and EKS-CTL is used to create the EKS cluster in the AWS cloud, especially in the EKS service. So for these, we are going to install all of these three things like AWS CLI, EKS-CTL, and kubectl. So these are the commands which are related to installation of kubectl. So let me create a shell file called kube.sh, inside which I'm going to keep all the commands related to kubectl installation. So let me execute that shell file called kube.sh so that kubectl will get installed. Meanwhile, let us get the commands for the AWS CLI installation also. So you can see the kubectl is installed successfully. The version is version 1.19.6. So let's create one more shell file to install AWS CLI, because by using this CLI only, the AWS CLI only, we are going to connect with the AWS services that are required to set up the cluster. So for that reason, I'm installing the AWS CLI, and to update the kube config or to get any caller identity, all these things, we need to use AWS CLI. So AWS CLI is also installed successfully. You can see that particular version. Now, the last thing that we need to install is EKS-CTL. So let me create a shell file called EKS-CTL.sh, and inside which I'm going to keep the commands related to EKS-CTL. So escape:_wk. So let's execute the EKS-CTL sh file so that EKS-CTL will get installed. Now the thing is, we need to create the cluster. Now in order to create the cluster, my EC2 instance where I have installed kubectl, EKS-CTL, and Jenkins, Docker, and all these things should have the permission to connect with AWS. So for that reason, we can do it in two ways. One is we can create an IAM user, and that IAM user, we can generate the access keys and secret keys. And once we generate that access keys and secret keys, we can configure here. That is by using AWS configure. That is by one way. Another way is we can directly create an IAM role. And for that IAM role, we'll give the direct administrator access. And then we will attach that IAM role to the EC2 instance where we are actually going to run the EKS-CTL and kubectl commands. So I'll be following the second approach. If you refer to my previous videos or the previous projects where I have showed how to configure the AWS by using access keys and secret keys as well. In this video, just for a change, I'm going to create one IAM role. That role I'll attach with the EC2 instance where I'm going to execute the commands. So just click on create role, and the trusted type is AWS service. Use case is EC2 because we are going to connect this role with the EC2 service. So I'm selecting the service as EC2, click on next, and then here I'll directly give the administrator access. If you want, you can give the fine-grained permissions also, but that's completely optional. Since we are at a practice level, we can directly give the administrator access. In the real time, what permissions has to be attached will be clearly documented to you, and the document will be provided to you. So accordingly, you have to attach the required policies. But here I'm directly going with the administrator access. And then scroll down, click on next, and here you can give the role name. So I'll just give the role name as production grade app. Let's give some name, a decent name, production grade app, and then click on create role. Now, once the role is created, we are going to attach this particular role. We are going to attach this particular role to the EC2 instance. So let's navigate to the EC2 service. In the EC2, we have the instance. So for that instance, we are going to attach this particular IAM role. So once you attach this IAM role to the EC2 instance, then this EC2 instance can perform any activity in the AWS service or in the AWS account. That is by creating a VPC, that's by creating a cloud formation templates, IAM roles, EKS cluster control plane in the EKS service. So all of these things can be performed. So select the EC2 instance, go to actions, in the actions security, in security, modify IAM role. So click on modify IAM role and then select the IAM role which we have just created. So this is the role which I have just created. So select the role and then click on update IAM role. So once we have updated the IAM role, then we are good to go and create the EKS cluster. So to create the EKS cluster, this is the command which I am going to use. So this command will actually create the EKS cluster with a name called Kastro-cluster. This is the cluster name. And I'm creating the cluster in a region called US East 1. And the worker node type I'm going to use as a T2.medium. And I'm going to have the instance, I'm going to spread the resources across two availability zones, that is US East 1A and US East 1B. So if you want, you can keep the resources in as many availability zones as you can to have high availability, or by any chance, if the failure comes in one of the availability zones, you will have the resources in as an standby resources in another availability zones, which takes care of the application. But here I'm not going to bother about the customization of the cluster, like with a specific EBS volume, with a specific size of the EBS volume and all. Let us go with the default EBS volume type, which will come as ZP2, and the storage will come as 80 GB for the EBS volume, and the cluster will get created in the North Virginia region, that is US East 1. You can create in any region of your convenience. So let me hit enter so that the cluster gets created. So this cluster creation process will take some time. Meanwhile, what we do is we need to execute, or we need to configure few things in the Jenkins. So let us go and configure few things in the Jenkins. But before configuring, let me show you the directory or the GitHub repository which you can access when you are practicing. So this is the GitHub repository where you can find the complete code of the application. So in this repository, you can see there are three folders available. The first folder is main branch code. The second folder is feature A branch code. The third folder is feature B branch code. In the main branch code, you have the application code and all other Kubernetes YML files and ArgoCD YML file as well. And Docker file is also there. Jenkinsfile is also there, which we are going to write it in a while. And even the Kubernetes and ArgoCD YML files also we are going to write. And the most important thing here is the application.py file. So where we have the source code of the application. So in the application.py file, we have the source code of the application. This is simple HTML content with app.py file. But here we are going to deploy a e-commerce application. That's the type of application which we are going to use. And then the requirements.txt file, which has the project dependencies for this application. So what you can do is when you are doing the deployment in the first time, that is the main branch code, you download this code and you push to the repository. Once you download this code and push to the repository, Jenkins pipeline will automatically trigger because of the Jenkins file availability in the GitHub repository. Anyways, I'll show that. So this is the repository which you can use when you are practicing. So this repository link is provided in the description of the video. You can look into this particular repository to access the complete code, whichever is required for this application. Right. Anyway, let's go back to the Jenkins console where we need to install a couple of plugins inside the Jenkins. So let's go to Manage Jenkins. In the Manage Jenkins, we are going to install a few plugins. So go under System Configuration, go to Plugins. In the plugins, go to Available Plugins, and let's install one plugin, which is a Pipeline Stage View, where we can clearly see the stage-by-stage execution of the pipeline. And then the next thing that we are going to do is installation of Docker-related commands, so that we are going to configure the Docker tool in Jenkins. So I'm just selecting all the Docker-related commands, and then Kubernetes-related, not commands, Kubernetes-related plugins also we are going to install. So let me select all the Kubernetes-related plugins like Kubernetes Client API, Kubernetes Credentials, Kubernetes CLI, credentials provided. Anyway, we are not going to configure any credentials here because I have directly attached the IAM role to the EC2 instance. So logically, these things are not essential for this project, but as a best practice, I am just installing these plugins. And once these plugins are installed, you can just click on install so that all the plugins, whatever we are trying to install, they all will get installed. Once the plugins gets installed, it is always recommended to restart Jenkins, because when you restart Jenkins, you will be able to know the updates of the plugins. So for that reason, if there are any updates that doesn't got installed when you install the plugins, if you restart, the plugins will perform in a better way. So for that reason, it is always recommended to restart the Jenkins whenever you install the plugin. So just check this box so that Jenkins will get restarted. Once the Jenkins is restarted, then we are going to configure the credentials in Jenkins. And the tool also we are going to configure, which is a Docker tool. Here, we are going to configure two credentials. One is the Docker Hub credentials, and the second one is GitHub credentials. Docker Hub credentials are configured because we want to push the image to the Docker Hub. So for that, you need to give permissions to Jenkins to use or to connect with the Docker Hub account. That's one thing. And the second thing is GitHub credentials. Whenever you push the code or whenever you pull the code by using Jenkins pipeline should connect with your GitHub account. So for that reason, we are going to configure the GitHub credentials as well, so that Jenkins will pull the code and Jenkins will update the code in the GitHub repository accordingly whenever we create the feature branches. So for that reason, GitHub credentials are also required. So just click on go back to the top page. Now the next thing that we have to do is first let us configure the Docker tool here. Go to Manage Jenkins. In the Manage Jenkins, under System Configuration, Tools. So click on Tools. In Tools, we are going to configure the Docker tool. If you scroll down to the bottom, so click on Add Docker, and you can give the tool name as Docker, and then you don't need to select any install automatically or installation route. By default, it will get installed, and then click on Apply, Save, so that Docker tool is configured successfully. Once Docker tool is configured, the next thing that we have to do is configuring the credentials. So just click on Credentials, and then click on Global Credentials for System, and then Add Credentials. And here, username with password. Kind is username with password. Scope is global. Username. My Docker Hub username is Kastro. In your case, whatever is username, you can keep that, and you can provide the Docker Hub password. So I'm just providing the Docker Hub password, and then Docker Hub ID. I'm just going to give it as a Docker Hub -creds. Any ID you can give here, but remember, whatever ID that you are providing here, that will be the same ID which we will configure in the Jenkins also, that is in the Jenkins pipeline also. So you have to be very careful when you are giving the name. You can give whatever name, but whatever is the name that you are giving here, the same name you should configure in the pipeline as well. And then click on Create. So with this, Docker Hub credentials are configured. And the next thing is we need to configure the GitHub credentials as well. So kind, username with password, scope is global, username. You can give your Docker Hub username, GitHub username. My GitHub username is Kastro Kiran, and then password. So here we need to generate the personal access token for the GitHub account. So this is my GitHub account. So go to the profile, and here you can see settings. In the settings, we can go with in the left pane, you can see developer settings. So click on developer settings, and here personal access token, tokens classic. You can go with fine grained tokens also. So I'll delete this existing token. I don't want this one. So let's generate a new token. So click on generate new token classic, and then give some note. I'll just give it as Jenkins token. Any name can be given. Expiration time, you can select according to your requirement. I'll just keep it as 30 days, and then select all the scopes of the report. By default, these two are more than sufficient, but just for a safer side, I'm just going to select all the scopes for this particular repository. So let me check all of these boxes, and then we can generate the token. Once you generate the token, you will be able to see the token. That token we will configure as a password in the Jenkins credentials. So you can see the token has got generated. So copy this token and then go to the Jenkins dashboard. Here you can see the password, right? So just paste that token, whatever that you have copied. And then here I'm going to give the ID as a GitHub-creds. Any ID you can give, but again, whatever ID that you are giving here, this will be the same ID which we will configure in the Jenkins pipeline. So click on create. So with this, we have successfully configured the Jenkins. We have successfully configured the Docker Hub credentials and the GitHub credentials in Jenkins. So once this is done, the next thing that we have to do is we need to create the multi-branch pipeline. We need to create the multi-branch pipeline. Now to create before we create the multi-branch pipeline, we need to create the GitHub repository, and into the GitHub repository, we need to push the code. We need to push the code. That is, whatever code that is available in the main branch, this code I already have in my local, that is Dockerfile, Jenkinsfile, app.py, requirement.txt. These things are there. So let me push it to a new repository so that you can also practice in the same. So let me create a new repository here. So let me just go to new repository. And here I'm just going to keep this password for my future purpose. By any chance, if I need in a while, I'll just take the help of this. So I'll just use GitHub token. We'll use it if it's required in future. So right. So let's give the repository name. So I'll just give the repository name as, let's say, multi-branch production. Let's keep like this. And then, so click on create repository. So with this, the repository has got created. Now we need to push the code to this repository. Now let's say developer has written the code, the version 1 code. So if you have the app.py file where the developer has written, requirements.txt file where again developer has configured, and the Docker file for the Python application. So I hope you are aware of the Docker file writing part. So I'm not going to focus on Docker file writing part on a large scale, but let me just explain in a brief way. So since it's a Python based application, I'm going to get the Python base image. So but that is a slim image so that I can reduce the size of the image also. So, and then I'm setting the working directory to /app, and the requirements.txt file, I am copying it to the current location. So where is this current location? Inside the container. So what is my current location? I have set my working directory, right? So whatever the requirements.txt file that is available in the local, that will get copied into the container into this particular location. That's what copy requirements.txt dot represents. And then we are going to install the package manager called a pip. And this package manager will install whatever packages or whatever the dependencies that we have configured in the requirements.txt. So in the requirements.txt, I have just configured a Flask dependency. So Flask will get installed. And then we are going to copy the application.py file where the source code of the application is available. And this file I'm going to copy into the current location of the container. So dot represents current location. So where will be this current location? Into the container. So what is the current location inside the container? I have set the working directory, right? So it will copy to this particular location. And by default, Python applications will run on port number 5000. So I'm going to expose that particular port number. And then this is a Python application. So I'm going to run the commands called python app.py. So this 5000 port number, it is already configured in the app.py file. If you scroll down to the complete bottom of the page, so you can see the port is configured in the application.py file. That is completely taken care by developers. Once developers let you know what port number you should configure, accordingly, you should write the same thing in the Docker file as well. Now with this, we have the source code of the application. Now let us push this source code to the GitHub repository. So for that, I have actually created the GitHub repository now. Now let's push the code. So before we push the code, let me open the terminal. You can see at the bottom left side, there is a warning icon, right? So just click on here, and then this window will pop out. And here, go to the terminal. Let me just keep it. Yeah, go to the terminal. And here, let's get the git bash shell. Okay, git bash. If you want, you can open this entire thing in the git bash also. Directly, you can do it in the git bash as well. Right. So let us initialize that git first by doing a git init so that git will get initialized and a .git folder will get created. And then let's add this entire things to the staging area by using git add dot, and then let's commit them, git commit -m, and I'll call it as, let's say, version 1 code. You can give any name, so I'm just giving version 1 code because this is the first version which we are going to deploy, version 1 code. Once the code is committed, then we can check the status. You will see the working tree is clean. So nothing to commit, working tree is clean. Now let's configure the remote repository here. So to configure the remote repository, this is the command. So let me copy this entire command and let me paste it here, hit enter. Now the remote repository is also configured. Now let us create a new branch called main branch. Otherwise, you can go with master branch also. That's completely up to you. So I'm just going with main branch, and then I'm going to push this code to the main branch of the GitHub repository. So hit enter so that the code will be pushed to the remote repository. So let me execute it one more time. The authentication failed because I have created the account, the personal access token, right? So now you can select a token here. We have just created the token, right? So that token, we will just paste it there so that the code will be pushed to the remote repository. So let's go to the VS Code editor and select token here and then paste the token, click on sign in. So that the code will be pushed to the remote repository into the main branch. So the code has been pushed. Now let's go to the remote repository. Let's just refresh the page. Just refresh the page. Once you refresh the page, you can see the main branch is there. In the main branch, Docker file is available, app.py file is available, requirements.txt file is available. If you remember, I was just telling some time back the folder structure. So in the folder structure, I have kept app.py file, requirements.txt file, and Docker file. So now let's write the Jenkins file. Let's write the Jenkins file. But before writing the Jenkins file, let's write the deployment YML file and service manifest file, because we want to do the deployment into the Kubernetes, But here, we are not going to do the deployment into the Kubernetes by using Jenkins. We are going to use the GitOps approach. So for that, we are going to write one ArgoCD YML file. Otherwise, you can directly create the application in ArgoCD. Anyways, both I'll show it in this particular video. Right, so let's verify whether the cluster is ready or not. Yeah, cluster has got created. So let's verify whether the nodes are in the running state or not. So kubectl get nodes. So you can see the 2 worker nodes has got created. And there are no pods. So kubectl get pods. You can see no pods are available. Right. So currently it's just cluster got created. Now once the cluster is created, we need to update the kubeconfig file. We need to update the kubeconfig file. So because kubeconfig file, if you update, then Jenkins can perform any kinds of activities. So let's update the kubeconfig file. And kubeconfig file also has its own importance in the Kubernetes. I believe you are aware of that. So I'm not going into the details of that one. So let's give AWS STS and then get -caller -identity. Let me just get the identity to cross verify. So, right. So with this account, it is linked, and you can see the ARN. Right. So now let us update the kubeconfig file. So to update the kubeconfig file, the command is AWS EKS update -kubeconfig. In which region our cluster is there? In a region called US East 1. So give the region name and then --cluster. We have the cluster also. So cluster name is Kastro -cluster. Kastro-cluster. So that's the cluster name. If you want, you can just go to EKS service in AWS. You can verify that cluster name as well. Here also, if you just refresh, you'll be able to see the 2 worker nodes. Let us see that. Yeah, you can see the 2 worker nodes that got created. And the control plane name, that's basically the cluster name, is Kastro-cluster. Let it come. Yeah, you can see Kastro-cluster. So that's the same name which I have given here, Kastro-cluster. So with this, the kubeconfig file will get updated. Once the kubeconfig file gets updated, the next thing that we have to do is, by default, Jenkins will run as a Jenkins user. So any Docker related commands or any kubectl related commands cannot be performed by the Jenkins. So for that, we need to we need to give the permissions. We need to change the ownership. So before changing the ownership, let's verify by seeing whether Jenkins is running as which type of user. Is it running as a Jenkins user or any other user? So this is the command to verify whether Jenkins is running which type of user. So you can see Jenkins is running as a Jenkins user. So since Jenkins is going to run as a Jenkins user, what we will do is let us create since Jenkins is going to run as a Jenkins user, kubectl basically uses kubeconfig file. Kubeconfig is currently under root user. So if you do who am I, it is under root user. So Jenkins cannot read the kubeconfig file which is in the root path, that is in the /root path. So therefore, Jenkins cannot access our EKS service, that is EKS cluster. So for that, let me create a directory. So I'll just show you the commands where I believe I have already written them. Just give me a second. Yeah, these are the commands. So let's just copy these commands and then it will perform all the activities. So here I'm just creating a directory. That's by using mkdir in this particular location. And this is the directory, that is .cube. And then I'm going to copy the kubeconfig file, which is in this location, to this particular location. And then I'm going to change the ownership of the file. That is ownership, I'm changing it to Jenkins user because Jenkins has to perform all these things. Hit enter, that is done. Once it is done, the next thing that we have to do is we need to restart Jenkins. We need to restart Jenkins. Why? By default, Jenkins will run as a Jenkins user. So we want Jenkins to perform some Docker related commands. So for that, we need to modify the group permissions. So let us modify the group. So sudo user mod -a capital G and then Docker and Jenkins. So the group permissions has been modified. And now since the permissions has got modified, let us restart Jenkins. So systemctl restart Jenkins. So hit enter so that Jenkins will get restarted. Once Jenkins is restarted, we'll just refresh this page so that Jenkins will ask you to sign in once again because we are restarting Jenkins, right? So Jenkins will get restarted and then we are going to work with log into the Jenkins. And then we will write the manifest file. Once we write the manifest file, then we are going to do the Jenkins file writing as well. So let it get restarted and then we can write that. Right. So let me just paste this one and then click on sign in so that we'll be able to log into Jenkins. Right. So with this, we have restarted the Jenkins. Now, let's write the manifest files. So let me close this one. So in the same folder itself, I'm going to write the manifest file. But as I said, we'll create one folder here. Okay, the folder structure, as I have explained some time back. So we'll create K8s folder. Inside K8s, we'll keep all the Kubernetes related files. So let me create the K8s folder. Any name you can give. That's just the name to the folder. And here the name of the file will be deployment.yml. And I'll create one more file, which is service.yml. So deployment.yml file will write the deployment information. Service file will write something related to exposing of the application using a Kubernetes service, which is by using load balancer. Right, anyway. So first let's write the deployment manifest file. So I'll go with API version. So we are trying to create a deployment. So for deployment, the API version is apps/v1. Apps/v1. That's the API version for deployment. And then we'll write metadata. That's about information about the deployment. So I'll just call the deployment name as, let's say, movie app, whatever name that you want. Let's keep it some name. Okay. So it's an e-commerce app, but I'm just keeping it as movie app. You can keep whatever name that you want. And then this entire deployment should happen in the default namespace. If you want, you can do the deployment in a custom namespace also. That's completely upon your requirement. And then spec, and I'm going to keep the replica count. Let's keep it as some 5 replicas. That's more than fine. And then selector. So selector, here we are going to write match labels. So let's write the labels here. So I'll just call it the label as movie-app. Any label you can give. Okay, so I'm just giving the name as movie app, the deployment name, and the same name I'll follow for labels and pod labels as well. So match labels, I'm just giving app colon movie app, and then let's write the template. Basically, this template talks about the pod information. So metadata. So under metadata, we'll write the labels. These labels belongs to pod labels. So app colon movie hyphen app. And the most important thing is whatever is your pod label, it should match with the match labels. So please be very careful about that. Okay, right. And then spec, the specifications about the pod. So the pod should have containers, basically will have the containers. And then the container name I'm giving, just call it as movie app, any name, that's just the container name. And this container should get created with an image. So image, okay, image, and that image will be there in my Docker Hub, But at this point, we don't know the image name. So let us not keep the image name at this point. Let's once we build the Jenkins file, that's by using CI, then we will see how to work with that one, right? And then ports, and then container port. So the container port is going to run on port number 5000. That's the container port. So this image we are going to update in a while because we didn't have decided the name of the image. That image will decide when we are writing the Jenkins file. And meanwhile, let us also write the service manifest file to expose the deployment. So API version is v1 kind. We want to create the service. So kind is service. And then metadata. Metadata means the information about the service. So metadata. So let's write the name of the service. So I'm just giving it as movie hyphen app hyphen service, and then spec. So I'm just calling it as type. The service type I'm going to use as load balancer. So let's write the load balancer as a service type. And then how service will identify the pods by using pod labels. That is by using selector. So where we have mentioned the pod labels, this is basically your pod label. So app colon movie app. So whatever is your pod label, the same thing you should write under selector as well. And then ports, we can mention. So ports. So here, if you want, you can write the service port, but that's optional again. Service port by default will be 80, but target port is most important. So target port is your container port. So 5000. Right. So with this, our service manifest file is ready. But in the deployment manifest file, we just have to write the image. That image will write it in a while. Okay, that image will write it in a while. Right. So now let us write the Jenkins file also. Let us write the Jenkins file. So I'll just create a new file called Jenkinsfile. So here we are going to write the Jenkins file. We're going to write the Jenkins file. So any pipeline will start with the pipeline. So I'll just call it as pipeline, and agent, I'll keep it as any. That's agent any. And then I don't want the concurrent builds. So we'll disable the concurrent builds because we have to update the Jenkins, we have to update the manifest files. So whenever you are updating the manifest file, that should happen automatically. Let's say if 2 builds are happening parallelly, or if more than 2 builds are happening parallelly, so that will unnecessarily cause an issue in updating the image version in the deployment manifest file. So for that reason, we are going to disable the concurrent build. So I'll just call it as options. With options, we'll just write that as disable concurrent builds. So if you have an idea about Jenkins, probably you will get to know this one. But disabling concurrent builds will actually help us to avoid unnecessary crashes of the deployment manifest file. Because in the deployment manifest file, this image tag should be updated. So when you make parallel builds, what will happen is this image tag will just like that, it will get updated. So without any reason, it will get updated, which will, at end of the day, cause the application deployment will lead to failure. So for that reason, we will disable any concurrent builds that might happen in future. So for future purposes, I am just disabling the concurrent builds for this one, right? So and the next thing is we are going to set some environment variables here. So I'll just call it as environment, and under environment, we are going to set the environment variables for name, image name. So I'll just give the image name, which is Kastro V. That's my Docker Hub username. and let's call it as a multi-branch Flask app. Any name you can call. I'm just calling this particular name. Now this should be the name which you have to give it in the deployment manifest file. Okay, so you can give any name, but remember whatever name that you are giving it in the Jenkins file, that name alone you give it. And here let's give it as latest. Okay, because it should always pull, but this one will get updated. That's for sure. We'll see that in a while. And then Jenkinsfile. So image name I have made it as an environment variable. I mean environment information. And then Git has to get updated now. So whenever you want to commit, whenever you commit the new version of the application, every time Git has to update. Git has to configure and Git has to get updated. So for that reason, I'm just configuring the Git username. So for that, I'll just call it as Kastro Kiran as the user. You can give any name. That is just a Git configuration. And then Git configuration email also I'll give it, which will be, I'll just give it as Kastro Kiran, or let's keep this one, learn with Kastro@gmail.com. You can give any email of your convenience. So with this, I have set the 3 environment variables. One is image name, the GitHub username, and GitHub email ID. Why? Whenever you want Jenkins to update the image versions in the deployment manifest file. So if Jenkins has to update that manifest file by going into the GitHub repository, you need to configure Jenkins. I mean, you need to configure Git. So Git will be usually configured with username and email ID. So that's what I'm doing here. And now let's write the stages part. So stages. So here we are going to write multiple stages. So the first stage is a checkout stage. First stage is checkout stage, where Git will get the code. I mean, Jenkins will get the code. So checkout. So let's keep it as the stage name as a checkout. You can give any name. I'm just giving some decent name. And then steps, under steps, we'll have the checkout SCM. Checkout SCM. So we are not going to keep any repository URL here because it's a multi-branch pipeline. Jenkins will automatically detect the Jenkins file in a particular branch, and then it will automatically trigger. So for that reason, I'm not configuring any Jenkins GitHub repository here. Directly, if you write this stage, that's fine. And the next thing that we have to do is we need to write one more stage. So let's write stage 2. So stage, and here I'm going to write the stage as, let's say, build and push image. We need to build, once the code is available, by using the Docker file, which is there in the GitHub repository, the Docker image should be get created. So once the Docker image is created, we need to tag that image. Once the image is tagged, we need to push that image to the Docker Hub. So for that reason, I have just mentioned the stage name as build and push image. And then, so I'll write a block called when. So whenever something happens only in the main branch, I want Jenkins to trigger the pipeline. So that I will be able to see the main application in the load balancer URL, or when I'm accessing as an user. So that's why I'm giving it as main. So when anything happens in the main branch, what will happen, as I said here. So if you have noticed here, what I have said, let's say whenever developer pushes the code to the main branch, then automatically the Jenkins CI job will get triggered, and then CD job will be performed by the Kubernetes, that is by ArgoCD. Now, whenever GitHub admin reviews the changes and then approves the changes or merges the changes to the main branch, then only my pipeline should trigger. Otherwise, my pipeline should not get triggered. Let's say if the developer is pushing the code to feature a branch, and without the approval of the reviewer or the GitHub admin, if you are deploying the code, that's not something which is real time, or that's not something which we do it in the production level. So what we have to do, first we will push the code to the feature A branch, then we will raise the pull request. Once the pull request is raised, GitHub admin will review the changes, then GitHub admin will merge the code to the main branch. Once the code is merged to the main branch, then only my pipeline should trigger. Otherwise, my pipeline should not get triggered. So that's why when branch main, when something happens in the main branch, what it should do. So steps. So what it should do, it should basically do the image building and tagging and pushing. But before building the image, tagging the image and pushing the image, how the image should be tagged. Let's say every time you cannot tag the image with the latest version, correct? Every time you should not tag the image with latest version. So here what I'll do is based on the build number, based on the build number, we are going to tag the image. Let's say the image is something like this, multi-branch hyphen flask app, something like this is there. So what will happen? Hyphen the build number should come, hyphen build number, so that it will be easy for us also. Whenever you want to perform any rollback, it will be easy for us also. Based on that image tag, we can easily roll back. So that's the reason why I'm going to configure with the build number. So for that, we need to define that. So define. So what we are defining? We are defining image tag. Image tag. How we are defining? So we are just giving some name. Let's say build hyphen based on a build number. So I'll just call it as dollar symbol and then build number. So let's call it build underscore number. Build underscore number. So now what will happen? Automatically based upon the build that you are doing, how many times you are doing the build, that build number will get added. That build number will get added as the tag for the image. Tag for the image. Build hyphen, let's say 62, build hyphen 63, like that it will come. Let's say, so how it will come is, let's keep something like this. So I'm just writing randomly here. So it will be, let's say if you are doing the first build hyphen 1, second build hyphen 2, third build hyphen 3. Like this, the builds will keep on coming. The images will get tagged, build hyphen 10, build hyphen 20. So like this, you will have different versions of the images. So that's the whole point here. So build a number. This one, you can just give it, otherwise if you leave it also directly, you can call build number. So that build number will be directly available. Right. So that's a tag we have defined. Now the next thing that we have to do is we need to tell where to push the code. Where to push the code. So push the code as in the image, the Docker image. So where the Docker image has to be pushed to the Docker Hub. But Docker Hub, we have configured the credentials. So I'll just configure it as with credentials, and then I'm going to configure the credentials with the username password. So I'll just call it as username password. We have configured the Docker Hub credentials with username and password, right? So I'm just doing the same thing. And then open the braces, and here we are going to give the credentials ID. So I'll just call it as, we have configured the credentials with the Docker Hub hyphen creds. If you remember, if you go to Jenkins, in the Jenkins, I have configured the credentials, the Docker Hub credentials. So how I have configured the Docker Hub credentials using the Docker Hub hyphen creds. Similarly, GitHub credentials are configured as GitHub creds. Same thing. So whatever I have given here, the ID, the same thing we should provide it here. That's why I said when you are configuring the credentials, whatever is the ID, the same thing you should also mention in the Jenkins file. I have talked about that before a while. That's credentials. And then you can give the username variable. So username variable. So I'll just call it as Docker user, Docker underscore user, and then username, the password variable. So let's call it as password variable. And here also you can call it as Docker underscore pass. That's just the variables I'm declaring, nothing much I'm doing here. Right. So the same thing, this entire thing, you can also generate using pipeline syntax also. In the Jenkins, we have one option called pipeline syntax. Using that pipeline syntax also, we can generate. Let me show you that just briefly. So I'll just give some name. We have some name I'm giving. Then pipeline, okay. And if you scroll down to the bottom, let it come. Yeah, if you scroll down to the bottom, you can see pipeline syntax. So by using this pipeline syntax also, you can generate with sample step, with the registry credentials, like that one option will be there. Let me just, yeah. You'll see that option, Docker credentials with registry credentials. Yeah, this one. Okay. So with this also you can configure. Okay, that's you can configure the registry URL and the registry credentials we have configured, right? So that also you can configure, and the default you can go with Docker and then click on generate pipeline script. So the script will get generated. So whatever script that gets generated here, same thing only I have written here, but I have manually written. Okay, this is good to remember because this is something which is common. So that's why I'm just written manual. But if you refer to my previous videos, I have showed how to generate this pipeline syntax also. So if you want, you can refer it previous videos or other project videos. But now I'm writing it manually itself, just to make sure that you also have to remember these things. Okay. So once this is done, then we need to execute some Docker related commands. We need to execute Docker related commands. So what are the Docker related commands? We need to build the image and then we need to push the image. So in the building process, you need to tag the image also. So let's execute some shell command. So shell. So let's keep 3 quotes. Okay. And then let's end them also with 3 quotes. Right. So now we need to write the Docker command. So Docker build -t is to tag, and how it has to tag using the image name, So here we have given the image name, right? So this name you have to tag. So just call that environment variable. So I'll copy this image tag. So how will you call an environment variable? By using dollar symbol. So dollar image name, and then so dollar, let me close this one. So dollar image name. And once that is done, you need the version also, right? So how the version will come? How the version will come? Using a tag, image tag. I have specified here, right? So I'm just calling that variable. So image tag colon, and then the dollar symbol on it, call. So that's it. And then space dot. Dot represents the current location. So in the current location only, the Docker file will be available. So by using the Docker file, which is there in the current location, the image will be built. The image name will be this one, this entire thing. And the image tag will be the build number. That's what this entire thing. So once the image is tagged, let's say we can write a simple echo command also, so that we'll get to know whether Docker has logged into the Jenkins has logged in or not to the Docker Hub. So we'll just write echo, and we have called the variable, right, as a Docker pass, Docker underscore pass. So yeah, here you can see we have called that password variable, right? So I'm just calling that one Docker pass, and then close it. And once you go pipe symbol, and then Docker login -u. So how it has to log in? Using the username. So what is the username I have configured? Docker user. So let me copy this entire thing and paste it here. So the Docker user. And once it is logging in with this particular user, so --password, and then -std again. Right. I believe you are having an idea about all these things. So these are just basic Docker commands only, nothing much I'm doing here. And then the image has to be pushed. So Docker push, and then dollar symbol. So I'll just give the image name. Which image it has to push? Whatever image that is built here, that image has to be pushed. So I'm just giving image name colon. Which tag of the image has to be pushed? Whatever that we have given here, the latest one. Accordingly, it should push that image. That's it. So now the image will be pushed to the Docker Hub by logging into the Docker Hub by using the credentials which we have configured here in the Jenkins. Right. So once that is done, we need to write one more thing which is called as environment image. We need to write one more thing which is called as environment image. So let's write that, because whenever you build the image, whenever you build the Jenkins pipeline, for every next stage, you need to export that image, the latest image you want. So for that, I'm just calling environment image underscore tag. We have called that one only, right? Image underscore tag. This one. So this image has to be taken for the deployment. So image underscore tag equals to image underscore tag. That's it. So with this, the Docker will build the image and tag the image, and it will push the image to the Docker Hub by logging in. Right. And then it will use that particular image, whichever is the latest image, that image will be used to export it for the next stage. What is our next stage? The deployment stage. Where? To the Kubernetes. So let's write that particular deployment stage. Let's write the deployment stage. So now we need to write the deployment stage. So let's write the deployment stage first. Right. So let me just check the indentations. I mean the closing and opening braces. I believe these are all fine. Let's see if we get any error, we'll troubleshoot it. Right. So the next stage which we are going to write is we are going to write with yeah, here. So let's write the next stage. So stage will be uh, update manifest or deploy to Kubernetes, whatever. So we are going to update, right? So let's write it as update manifest. And then let's open it. Right. So here, when it has to take the image, when the code is pushed to the main branch. So when branch main, and branch main. So that's a condition. Okay, whenever something happens in the main branch only, it has to deploy that particular branch code. So steps and then script. We need to execute the scripts. Okay, so here it has to commit. Let's say whenever any changes happens, the build will happen. That's fine. But that updated image version should be updated in the deployment YML file. So if you want that update to happen in the deployment YML file, you need Jenkins to do that. Manually, you don't want that. Manually, if you want, you can use git add dot and then git commit, git push, like that you can do. But here you want everything to be automated using Jenkins only. So for that, we want Jenkins to update the Kubernetes manifest file, that is the deployment manifest file, with the version. How this version will get updated? Based upon the build number. So every time we cannot manually update. So we want Jenkins to update that. Where? In the deployment manifest file. So for that, Jenkins has to perform some Git related activities. Git related commands. So that commands I'm writing. So script, and how Jenkins will connect to the GitHub with the credentials. So with the credentials, and then what are the credentials? The username, password. We have configured, right? So username, password. And then we're going to open the braces, and here credentials ID, same thing. Just like how we have written for Docker Hub, same thing here also. And GitHub hyphen creds. So how this name is coming from? Here I have configured, right? In the manage Jenkins, I have showed you. Let me just go there. I showed you before a while, right? So go to credentials. In the credentials, I have configured like this. So that thing you have to write. So GitHub hyphen creds, and then the username variable. So username variable. So here the username variable, I'm just giving it as git underscore username. Any username variable. But this variable where we have defined, if you remember, the git user. Username, email. So username variable, and then the password variable as well. Password. So this is a token, no? So I just give some variable, so that's fine. Okay, right. Now Jenkins will log into GitHub using these credentials. Whatever that I have configured in the Jenkins, using those credentials, Jenkins will log into my GitHub so that Jenkins will update the manifest file. That is especially the version here, right? So now let us make sure to run some commands, because Jenkins has to update, no? So that update will happen through git commands. So for that, git has to be configured with username, email ID, and then it has to get the latest code, and then it should go to the main branch. In the main branch, we have the deployment manifest file, and then it has to update that manifest file. And then it has to add, commit, and then push it. That is, this and all has to be done by Jenkins only. So that's the most important element of this particular project. So this is what purely we'll do it in the real-time scenarios also. So that's what I'm doing here. Right. So I would have directly written the entire Jenkins file and I would have explained, but if I write it, you will understand it much more. So that if we get any errors also, we'll take the help of ChatGPT and we'll troubleshoot also. So SH, so let me just open them and close it. Right. Sorry. So let's write the commands. So I'm setting the environment variable set -e, and then git config. Git has to be configured, no? Git config user.name. Git config user.name. user.name. And here we have already set that as an environment variable. So let's call that, sorry, let's call that environment variable. So dollar, if you scroll up, I have configured the username, no? So I'll take this one and then I'll call this. So that with that username, Git will get configured. And similarly, email ID also. Git config user.email, and then how do we configure the user email? Again, here we have set in the environment variable, right? So take the same thing and keep it here. That's done. Right. So with this, username and email ID will be configured. Username and email. Here, Git username and Git token, you can give any environment variable. These are just environment variables. You can call with any name, no problem. But these things are very, very important because we have defined that in the pipeline as an environment variable. So with that same email ID and with that same password only, with that same username and email ID only, Git will get configured. Now, Git has to be in sync with the main branch of remote repository. So for that, Git always has to fetch the code. So Git fetch origin. Git fetch origin. It has to get the complete code now. So Git fetch origin, any changes. And then it should go where? It should go to main branch. Why? In the main branch only, we have the manifest file. So Git checkout main. And then it should do reset. It should do reset. The deployment YML files has to be updated, right? So Git reset hard reset I'm using. And then origin, we have soft reset and hard reset. I'll use hard reset so that any changes comes, that would be automatically, that would be modified at a hard basis. So where the changes should be done in the main branch. So origin, I'm setting it as main branch. And then it has to update the image tag in manifest file. Okay, it has to update the image tag in manifest file. So in order to update this image tag in the manifest file, what Jenkins should do is Jenkins should replace this latest to build number 1, build number 2, build number 3, like that it should replace it. So in Linux, if you want to replace one word with another word, we have a command called sed. Sed means stream editor. So sed-i, and then we need to substitute. So S means a substitute. S means a substitute. What it has to substitute? Image, and then dot star. Whatever is the image is there, that has to be substituted. With what? So pipe symbol, image, colon, which image name is there, no? So we have to call that image name. So dollar, what is the image name we have given? Image underscore name we have given, right? This image, it has to update. So copy this one, and then I'll just paste it here. Image name, and then with which tag? It has updated the image tag, no? Here it has updated the image tag, this one. So this one we have to call it. So copy this one, and then image name colon, and then call that tag. So call that image tag. So image tag, right? Now it will get updated. Now where it should do the update, this update and all, where it should happen? In the manifest file. So close this one, in the manifest file. So what is my manifest file name? Deployment.yml. That's the name I have given here, no? Deployment.yml. But where is this deployment.yml file? It is not in the root folder. It is in the subfolder called K8s. So we have to mention that K8s/deployment.manifest. So in this YML file, which is in this particular folder, the image tag will get updated. Based on the build number. Right, that is what it should do. Once the image tag is updated, it has to add it. So git add, which file it has to add? It has updated a particular file called deployment.yml. So deployment.yml. Where is this deployment.yml? In the K8s folder. So it has to add it. And then it has to commit. So if commit is there, that's fine. If there is any commit, it will commit. But before it does the commit, it has to verify whether there is really a change available or not. So for that, we can use a command called git diff to see the difference between two commits. So that's why I'm giving git diff cached hyphen quite I'll give. So it will check the difference between the two commits. If the difference is there, if the difference is there, double pipe symbol, then it will commit git commit hyphen m. And then what it has to do, like commit message, let's say updated image to with a tag. So we have this tag, no? So let's call with that tag. So that it will clearly show you, okay, with which name it has updated the image tag. That's it. Now the image is also updated. I mean, it is committed. Once it is committed, it has to be pushed where? To the main branch. To the main branch. So what is the command? Git push, and then https my repository name. So I'm just calling that one. If you want statically, you can directly configure the entire repository URL. That's also fine. Otherwise, in real time, we'll make it dynamically. So for that reason, I'll just call with git underscore username, and then we are going to go with the token. We have configured the token, no personal access token. So I'm just calling that with the environment variable, that is git underscore token. So if you see it here, so I have configured the username with git username, git token. That's what I have used. Same thing. Okay. And then @github.com. So where is my GitHub account? The GitHub account username you have to give. So my GitHub account username is Kastro v Kiran. In your case, it might be different. So you give whatever is your GitHub username. And then it will be, the file is there in the K8s folder. So K8s hyphen multi, okay, let's give the repository name. So what is my repository name? So let me just get the repository name in the GitHub. So this one, multi-branch prod. I'm just giving this one. So here we need to mention that. So here in this account, this particular repository, this repository is there in, we'll give .git also. .git and then main branch. Main branch. So this is my username, GitHub username. And this, okay, here I have to give mistake, GitHub. Yeah. So this is my GitHub username, and this is my account repository name, and then this is my branch name where the code is available. Right. So with this, the entire thing is done. With this, the entire thing is done. So if you want to write the post deployment, post stage, I mean, after deployment, if you want to write anything, you can write that also. But with this, the entire Jenkins file is ready. So go through this one more time. If you get any doubts, you can comment in the comment box. So I'll be happy to answer your questions. If you have any questions related to this Jenkins file, it's a little complicated, but this is how we will do it mostly in the real-time scenarios, because everything we have to automate. We don't want to do it manually. If it's a manual thing, this entire thing is not required actually. Since we are automating everything, so that's why we have to write multiple configurations. So here you have to have a knowledge on Git commands, you have to have a knowledge on Docker commands and the Kubernetes commands as well. Right. Anyways, so let me copy this thing. And now we are going to write the manifest file. I mean, we are going to push this entire things, whatever changes that we have made, that entire changes, we have to push it to .github. So let me open the terminal. And then let me clear the screen. Let's check the status first. You can see these things we have updated, right? So let's add it, add dot. Let's commit git commit -m, and then I'll call it as version 1 code. So committed. Let's push it to the remote repository. So git push -u origin main. That's the command. Hit enter. The code will be pushed to the remote repository. Right. The code is pushed. Now let's go to the GitHub. Just refresh it. You will see the K8s folder, and you will also see the Jenkins file. Okay. Both got pushed just now. So before we do, just let us have a quick check about whether everything is properly written in the Jenkins file or not. So for that, let me take the help of ChatGPT, and let's check with ChatGPT whether everything is properly written or not, just for a cross check. So I'll just use the below Jenkins file properly written or any errors. Let me know. So I'll just give something like this so that we'll cross-check with ChatGPT. That's again one more good thing. Your Jenkins file is closed, but it has multiple syntax and logical errors. Let's see that what are the disable concurrent builds up. Okay, I didn't close that one. Huh? So let me just try check with that. So where is Jenkins file? Yeah, it is there. Missing parenthesis. Okay, okay. I would have given that. I forgot that. Oh, this one. Yeah, that's fine. And then image tag used outside the script. So with credentials, wrong password, wrong keyword. Okay. Username, password with credential. Okay, I should have given as credentials, but I gave it as credential. That's one more thing. And then image tag not is defined inside a local block, not visible later. Must be defined. And export inside script. Okay. Typo in reset, git reset hyphen hyphen hard, R is in, okay, spelling mistake here. Yeah, you see, like these are all the things. But end of the day, we have written the Jenkins file. The structure wise, it's fine. But some spelling mistakes, these are there. In the typos, those things are the major issue. Image dot single quotes prevent variable expansion. Okay, showed with double quotes. That's fine. Okay, let me take this entire Jenkins file. Okay. So let me copy this entire thing and let me because it has updated everything. So let me paste that. Now let me again push the updated code. I mean updated Jenkins file. So let's clear the screen. Git status, we have updated that. So let's git add dot git commit hyphen m. We call it as version 1 Jenkins file. Committed. So let's push it. Git push hyphen u origin. It's pushed. Okay. So now we are going to configure we are going to work with the multi-branch pipeline thing. But before we work with multi-branch pipeline, we need to set up some few things because we need to set up the ArgoCD. ArgoCD we didn't set up so far. So let us set up that ArgoCD. Once we set up that ArgoCD, then we'll go and create the multi-branch pipeline. So here I'm going to set up ArgoCD using the Helm, using the Helm charts. So I have already given those commands in the documentation. Again, this documentation will also be there in the repository itself. So you can just check that in the repository as well. So let me just go here. Yeah. So let me show you the commands. So these are all I have installed. Cluster is also created. And here we'll execute these commands. We have to execute them. Okay, let me execute now itself so that because I told, right, Jenkins will run as a Jenkins user and it cannot perform. Have we executed these commands by any chance? Let me just cross verify by using history. Yeah, we have executed. No issues with it. No need to execute one more time. It's fine. So configured, that is also done. And then Helm. Because we are going to set up ArgoCD using a Helm. And we are also going to set up Prometheus and Grafana as well using the Helm itself. So let's first complete the deployment and then we will do the monitoring. And then let's install ArgoCD using a Helm command. Okay, we didn't create the namespace. Okay. Just a second. So I had to create the namespace. So let's create the namespace. So kubectl create namespace. Because in the command I have given, here I have mentioned the namespace called ArgoCD. So let's create that namespace called ArgoCD. kubectl create namespace and then namespace name. Right. Now the namespace got created. kubectl get ns. Now let's install ArgoCD using Helm in a namespace called ArgoCD namespace. So with this, ArgoCD will get installed. Once ArgoCD is installed, we'll get to know the pods related to ArgoCD. Get to know the pods are related to ArgoCD. So we have to see whether all the pods related to ArgoCD will be in the running state or not. So it will take a while. So let it take a while and then, yeah, it's fine. So now let's verify the pods. So kubectl get pods, and they will be there in a namespace called ArgoCD. So we have created in the ArgoCD only, right? So ArgoCD. So you'll get to know the pods which are available in the ArgoCD namespace. So you can see the ArgoCD related pods. So few are in the initialization status. Let us wait till everything gets created. Yeah, all the pods are in the running state. Now let's, by default, ArgoCD will be there. ArgoCD server will be there. Let me show you that. kubectl get service, and the service name will be get service. Let's see. Let me show you the -n ArgoCD. So there will be one service, but by default that service, this one ArgoCD server service will be cluster IP. The service type will be cluster IP. So we need to change that either to node port or to the load balancer. So for that we need to patch it. We need to patch. So either if you want, you can patch it to node port, or if you want, you can patch it to load balancer. But I'll be patching it to load balancer. Okay, load balancer is actually the recommended one. So let me patch that entire thing. Okay, so I'm just patching the service. So kubectl patch service. What is the service name? ArgoCD server. That one. So where is this service? In a namespace called ArgoCD. That one I am patching it. -p patch under spec type. Currently it is cluster IP. I am patching it as load balancer so that load balancer you will get generated. So kubectl get svc -n ArgoCD. If you hit enter, earlier we were seeing load cluster IP, right? Now you see change it to load balancer. So copy this entire thing. Now access the application in the browser. Access application as in the ArgoCD. But again, it will take some time to spin up because load balancer spin up will take some time usually. So let's go to load balancer console, and in the load balancer, let's verify. Yeah, you can see the load balancer has created. So let's see whether A61F0. A61F0, this one. A61F0. So the load balancer has got created, but the spin up will take usually some time. So let me copy this DNS name. You can check with that DNS name as well. So let me paste it. Let me close these unnecessary tabs. These are actually not required for us. Yeah, anyway, this also we don't need this pipeline also I'll delete because we are going to create a multi-branch pipeline. Okay, let it get spin up, no issues. Meanwhile, we'll create the multi-branch pipeline. Okay, so I'll just call it as e-commerce app. Any name, I have been giving it as a movie app, but I'm just giving it as e-commerce here. You can give any name here. That's just the name. That's it. Sorry. Here we should go with multi-branch pipeline. So click on OK. So now here we have to do few things. So display name. So I'll just call it as e-commerce-app. Description. This is a production grade deployment. This description is optional. If you want, you can give, but that's completely optional part. So production grade deployment, right? And then the branch sources. So click on branch sources. So our branch source is Git, and then the project repository will be there. The project repository we have to give it. Let it come. So second, it's not coming. Yeah. Oh, multiple things has got added. Let me just remove all unnecessary things because too many things has got added. So let me just select Git. Let us wait. Yeah. Project repository, because we have the code in the GitHub repository. So let's get the repository URL. So let me copy this URL. Then Let us provide the repository URL. Okay. And then credentials, no need of any credentials because it's a public repository. If it's a private repository, you have already configured the credentials some time back. So we can select that also. But it's a public repository, no need of credentials. And then discover behaviors, the discover branches. And then property strategy, you can go with named branches get different properties. That's something which is recommended. And you can also select all branches get same properties. So here you can select named branches get different properties. I believe you know the difference between this property strategy of named branches and all branches. So I'm not going to talk about that. It's related to Jenkins in detail concepts. But anyway, I believe you might know that, or I'll add it in the documentation. You can also refer that as well. So that's one thing. And then the build configure property strategy, that's fine. And then the build configuration, build should happen using Jenkinsfile. And the Jenkinsfile name, if you see it in the GitHub repository, this is the Jenkinsfile name. So where it is there in the root path of the directory. So whatever is the name here, that should be the same name you should give it here. That's most important. And then the scan multi-branch pipeline, my pipeline triggers periodically, if not otherwise run. No need this one because it will run at every regular interval. So we don't want that one. And then orphan builds, about build, discard old items, it's fine. And then appearance, you can keep all these things as it is. Yeah. And then click on apply save. But as soon as we click on apply save, the pipeline will trigger. So I'll not click on apply and save because we need ArgoCD to work here. So let me just refresh it. We'll get ArgoCD. Yeah, click on advanced and then click on proceed. So we'll get the ArgoCD homepage. So once we get the ArgoCD homepage, the default username for ArgoCD is admin. And the password we have to get by using a command. So admin, let me show you the password how to get. So this is the command which will be in encrypted format. So you have to execute this command to get the ArgoCD password. So that will get decrypted. Right. So this is your ArgoCD password. Don't copy the root at the rate and all. Just before root, whatever is there, copy that entire thing. Just before R, whatever is there, copy that. This represents the root, the user name. So currently I'm the root user. So it is showing root. Just before root, whatever is there, that's basically the password of ArgoCD. Copy that thing, paste it, sign in. With this, you are able to log into the Jenkins, the ArgoCD. Now here we can create the application. That application you can create by using the manifest file, okay, or directly here also you can create. So here itself we'll create, that's a recommended one, or by using manifest file also we can create. So let's click on new application and then here the application name. So you can just give the application name. I'll give it as movie-app. And then project name default, sync policy automatic. See, the reason why I'm giving movie app is I have named this application as movie app. So that thing is automatically coming into my head. So even though it's an e-commerce application, I'm naming it as movie app just to maintain the consistency. I would have changed in the beginning of the video only. But anyway, that is just a name. So don't bother about the name. Application will be an e-commerce application, but I'm just naming it as movie app because when I was checking it personally, it was a movie app originally. So that's why that name is coming to my head automatically. And that's how the name I'm giving it as movie app every time. And then sync policy, I'll just keep it as automatic only instead of manual. And then prune resources, you can keep self-heal. And then this is fine, repository URL. This is where the things will work. So here we have to give the repository URL where we have the code. So copy this one and then paste it. Oh, sorry, where is that? Yeah, paste it. And then revision, it's in the main branch. So the entire code is in main branch, right? So I'll keep it as main. And then path, where my deployment manifest file is there in the repository, it is in the K8s folder. So this name you have to give, K8s. Whatever name you are keeping here, that name you give it. I have kept the folder name as K8s. If you have kept some other name, you give whatever name that you want, that you have kept in the GitHub repository. And then So this tells basically the ArgoCD that in the KATS folder in the main branch, you have to update the manifest file. Okay, right. And then cluster URL, let's go with the default one. Namespace, if you want, you can deploy in the default namespace or in a custom namespace also. That's also fine. But if you are writing any custom namespace, before you write anything here, create that custom namespace here. Without creating, don't do. Okay, after creating the namespace, then you provide that namespace so that all your application pods will get deployed into that particular namespace. Right. And then click on create. So with this, application will get created here. But remember, currently there is no code, nothing. I mean, the things and all. So let's apply and save it. So if you notice in the Jenkins file, we haven't kept anywhere about the deployment to Kubernetes. So the Jenkins, what it will do, Jenkins will get the code and then Jenkins will build the image, tag that image and push us to the Docker Hub, and then it will update the manifest file. Once the manifest files are updated, once there is a change in the manifest file, ArgoCD will automatically notice that change. ArgoCD will automatically notice the change and then it will trigger the application. It will trigger the application. It will do the deployment here. So if you go to movie app and here the pods, you can see the pods are getting created. You can see we have given the replica count as 5, right? So you can see all the 5 replicas. So let's also see it here in the Jenkins. Yeah, it's a success, I believe. So scanning multi-branch pipeline, the finished state is success. Let's go to e-commerce. Yeah, this is fine. So you see the entire thing is successful. So go to main and you see. So Jenkins, what it has done, it has got the code, it has checked out, and then it has built and pushed the image, and then it has updated the manifest file. Now, once it has updated the manifest file, let's go to the GitHub repository and verify whether it has really updated or not. So go to deployment manifest file. You see, this is my first build, no? So build -1. In the original manifest file, how I have given latest I have given. Since I have given latest, that latest has been updated to build -1. How this build -1 is coming? If you see the Jenkins file, so here build, we have given build hyphen, yeah, this one. You see, build number. So build is coming hyphen, whichever build that you are doing, that build will automatically get updated. So here application got automatically updated. I mean the deployment YML file, the image tag has got automatically updated. Now let's go to the manifest, I mean the ArgoCD. You can see ArgoCD also got triggered. 5 pods got created. Let's verify them. So kubectl, everything got created in the default namespace. So everything will be there in the default namespace. So 5 pods should be there. You can see all the 5 pods are available. And kubectl get service. Service is also there. Service created load balancer. Because if you remember in the service manifest file, we have service type as load balancer. So it created the load balancer, right? And kubectl get deploy. Deployment will be there. That deployment will be maintaining 5 pods. So in the backend of deployment, replica set will get created. So kubectl get rs replica set. You see, replica set is maintained. If you do kubectl get all -n in the namespace called default. So you will see the pods. These pods are managed by deployment. Deployment is internally managed by the replica set, and the entire application is accessible using the service type, which is load balancer. Now copy this load balancer URL, go to the browser and just paste it here. You will be able to access version 1 of the application. You'll be able to access the version 1 of the application. So this is your version 1 of the application, which developers has developed. So forget about these images and all. So I have just kept some random images. So there is no connection between the wireless smart headphones and this image. So I just kept it some random images. Okay, some free images. So you can add the items to cart. So just click on add to cart. You can see the product cart updated, product added to cart. You can see one item is there in the cart. You can just click here. You can see that one. Okay, if we do checkout, so you can see order place. There is no multiple functionalities are not there, but That's the application. So you can add as many items as you can into the cart. So click on add to cart. One more item will get added. You see here it is getting updated. 2. Earlier it was only 1. Now it is 2. If you want, you click one more time. You see 3. So like this, the entire thing will get updated. So this is my version 1 of the application. So what I'll do is I'll just take the screenshot of this one. I'll just take the screenshot of it so that you will clearly get to know the difference between the different versions that we are going to deploy now. So I'll just take the screenshot of this one. Okay. So this is my version 1 image. So let me copy this one and let me open Paint. In Paint, I'll paste it. So this is the version 1 of the application, which is currently deployed. Okay, I'll just keep little down. So I believe it is visible when you are practicing. Also, you can see that. So I'll just call it as version 1. Okay, version 1. Now, assume that developer wants to update this application. He wants to add some more functionalities in the application. Some more functionalities in the application. So now what developer will do? Developer will write the code. So basically, if developer wants to update the code, it has to be updated through app.py file only. That's the only thing developer will do. Developer will update the code here only. Rest everything will be done by automated using Jenkins and ArgoCD. So Jenkins will take the latest code. Jenkins will observe the latest code. Jenkins will add it, commit it to the repository. And then whoever has done the changes, they will raise the pull request. Once the pull request is raised, then GitHub admin will review the changes and then GitHub admin will merge those changes from feature branch to main branch. Once the changes happened in the main branch, Jenkins will trigger the pipeline and then that will automatically trigger the ArgoCD pipeline. And then we will be able to see the new version of the application. In this entire process, the URL will not change. The end users are accessing the application using the same URL only. Updates only will come. Right. So for that, what we can do is we are going to update the code. So firstly, let me open the terminal here once again. And let me clear the screen. Let's see the status first. Git status. So if there are anything that I have done, let me pull it, git pull, so that any changes if I have made, those changes will come here also by any chance. Yeah. So yeah, this some 2 changes were there. Anyways, so now let's create. Now assume it as a developer point of view. Now you are doing the work as a developer. Now developer is going to create a feature branch from the main branch, and then developer will update in the feature branch. So git checkout. Now developer is doing the work. Git checkout -b. Developer is creating a branch called feature branch. From which branch? From the main branch. That means whatever code that is there in the main branch, that entire code will come into feature branch also. We do ls, you can see that entire thing will come into feature branch. Now what developer will do? Developer will edit this file alone. This has nothing to do with developer. So this file alone, developer will edit. So let me open that file, vi app.py. And inside this, developer is going to make some changes. So what I'll do is I'll just delete everything, whatever is there. I have the updated code. So let me give that updated code that is provided in the GitHub repository. That's where I was talking about the 3 folders in the repository. So this repository URL, as I mentioned, it will be there in the description of this video. So go to feature A branch code, and here also you'll have app.py file or code.py. Copy this entire content. Let me copy this entire content and then paste it. Okay, let me copy this. Everything you have to copy. If you miss anything also, functionality will not be proper. So please be very careful when you are copying. And then go to VS Code Editor. I'll just paste everything. So once it's pasted, I'll come out of the file. I'll add it to the staging area. I'll commit to the local repository area. And I will push to the remote repository. But in remote repository, which branch? A branch called feature A. Because directly we cannot merge, no, developers cannot merge. So let's come out of the file, :wq. Now if you do git status, this file has been modified. So let's add that file, git add app.py, added. Now check the status. It will be in the staging area. Now let's commit it to the local repository area. So git commit -m. I'll call it as a feature A. I'll call it as feat A. And in feature A, updates, let's keep that way. Feature A, updates. Committed. Now we need to push. So git to push origin to which branch I want to push? Any branch. So I'll call it as feature A branch. But in the remote repository, you see, in the remote repository, there is no feature branch. Currently, only one branch is there. Main branch only is there. Developer can only push it to the remote repository. Who will merge the changes? GitHub admin will merge the changes. You see, currently I have only one branch, and that branch is main branch only. Right. So let assume that developer is pushing the code to the remote repository. To which branch? To a new branch called feature A branch. Feature A branch. So let it get pushed, and then let's verify. This is correct. Let it come, we can do that. Right. So you can see the code has been pushed to the feature A branch. Now let's go to the remote repository. Let's just refresh this page. Now developer has pushed the code. Now pull request will be raised. Once the pull request is raised, then GitHub admin will review that pull request, and then GitHub admin will merge the changes. Okay, merge the changes. You can see feature A branch code has come. Let it come. Yeah, you see that feature A branch code. So now developer will raise the pull request. So go to pull. That pull request can be raised even from here also. But since I am the one who is accessing this repository, so I am directly doing it here. But I believe you have an idea about Git and GitHub thing. So you can raise a pull request from the local also. That is also possible. So I'm doing it directly here just to save some time. So new pull request, and then, so first go to pull request, and then go to new pull request. And then here we need to merge. From which branch to which branch I want to merge? Whatever code that is there in the feature A branch, that code has to be merged to main branch. That code has to be merged to main branch. That is what the developer is raising a pull request. So click on create pull request. And then if you want to give any title description, you can give. And then the pull request is raised. Once the pull request is raised, developer will review the GitHub admin will review the changes. You can see the pull request is open. So once the pull request is open, developer will review the changes, or the GitHub admin will review the changes, and then merges that pull request. Merges the pull request. So now currently, if you go to the GitHub, if you go to the Jenkins, let me just refresh it. Just a second, it is taking some time. Yeah. So you can see we have only one build, and that build happened from main branch only. That build happened from main branch only. Okay. So now, once the changes are merged, you can see checking for the ability to merge automatically. Let it complete. So you can see the pull request is raised. Now developer will review, or the GitHub admin will review, or the developer team lead will review the changes, and then merges the pull request, and then confirms the merge. Once the merge is confirmed, then you can see the changes are merged. Now automatically the pipeline will trigger. So this pipeline will update the image tag in the deployment manifest file. So currently it was, what was the tag? It was build -1. Now we are doing the second build. Let me just refresh it. We will be able to see the second build also. Once the second build is done, then automatically the image tag will get updated. So let me click on build now. So the second build is happening. And once the second build is happening, automatically here also the update will happen. Okay. So you can see here, it was 16 minutes ago. These pods and all were created 16 minutes ago. So once the changes happened in the deployment manifest file, automatically those changes will be identified by the ArgoCD, and then it will update the pods with the new version of the application. So this is done. The manifest file is updated. Let's go to the repository and just refresh it. Currently, you see build 1. Now we should see build 2. You see that? It got updated. Now go here and just refresh it. You'll be able to see that. You see 17 minutes ago. Now you see the few seconds ago. You see these ones? The new ones which are getting created. New paths are getting created a few seconds ago. So there is some error probably. But anyway, that won't be a big deal actually for us. Anyways, let's see. This part's got some error. Let's verify it. But anyway, let's go and refresh the page. We should not see this one. We should see a different version. So let me just refresh it. Yeah, you see that some changes are happened. So let's take the snipping tool and let me take the screenshot of this. Okay. So in version in version 1, different images were there. In version 2, the images are updated. That's the change that happened between version 1 and version 2. So this is version 2 of the application. So I believe you are able to notice the changes between version 1 and version 2. So the very minimal changes only. So there is nothing major changes, but let's say developer has made the changes. So as per the changes made by the developer only, we'll see updated things. So you can see here we have the images are little different compared to here. So let's see the application accessibility also. Let's verify if there is any major change that happened. So let me just refresh it one more time. Right. So let me just yeah, I might have kept the dynamic loading of this in the application. I might have kept the dynamic loading of the wallpapers. That's what I might have done. So that's why it is every time when I refresh, you are seeing the different wallpapers. That's what dynamic loading. Okay, the names and all hasn't changed, but this one I have made it dynamic. Okay, so here if I have to keep, so the dynamic loading of images for each item. That's the change that we can notice in the version 2 of the application. Now, like this, developers can make as many changes as they can and then update. Let's do one last change. Okay, let's do one last change. This time the change will be little better. So you will see more features in the application. So again, what developer will do? Developer wants to update the code. So whenever developer wants to update the code, let's say he'll check out to main branch. Okay. And then developer should pull the code first. Whatever the updates that were there, that updates has to be pulled. So developer is pulling the changes by using git pull command. And then once the changes are pulled, then developer is going to create a new branch. From which branch? Main branch. So git checkout -b and then the main new branch name. I'll call it as feature B. So now it has created a new branch called feature B and we are switched to that particular branch. So in this branch, we have the same files. So now let's edit the app.py file, %t. I'll just delete everything. And if you go to that repository, which I have asked you to go through, if you go to feature B branch, feature B folder, here you will have one more updated code. So copy this entire code. It's a lengthy code so that you'll have more features in the application. So let me copy this entire thing and then let me paste it. Yeah. Right. So copy that and paste it. Developer is updating the code. Once developer updates the code, developer commits it, add it to the staging area, commits to the local repository area, and then pushes to the remote repository area. Once the code is pushed to the remote repository area, developer will raise the pull request. Right. It's got pasted S:\wq. Paste it, copy, save and quit from the file. Yeah. So let's check the status. That since that file is modified, you can see it in red color. So let's add it to the staging area. Git add app.py. Let's commit git commit -m. Let's say it is feature B updated. It will be updated. Let's keep something like this. Commit and then push us to remote repository. Git push origin feature B. So this is a branch name. That's it. This is a branch name. But currently we don't have that branch in the remote repository. If you notice, in the remote repository, we have only two branches, main branch and feature branch. So now developer is pushing the code to feature branch. Which branch? Feature B branch. It is pushed. Now, once the code is pushed to the feature branch or a new branch, what will happen? Developer should raise the pull request. Same thing. The process remains same now. Whenever changes are pushed to the new branch in the remote repository, developer GitHub admin will review the changes, will merge that pull request, which is raised by the developer. Right. So you can see feature B branch, go to pull request, and then new pull request. We need to create a new pull request. And then from which branch? From feature B, I want to merge into main branch. So it is able to merge. And then you can see the changes also. What are all the changes that were made? Okay, you can go through them. So create pull request and then create pull request. The pull request will get created. Now the pull request is open. Now developer will review the changes. You can see files changed. If you go here, GitHub admin will get to know which files were changed and what are the things. This is the file that was changed, app.py, and this is the entire thing. Developer will review this entire change. The admin will review the entire change. Once everything is good, then the changes will be merged. So merge pull request, confirm merge. Now the changes are merged. Once the changes are merged, you can build the pipeline. You can build a, so click on build now. Third build will happen. And when third build happens, what will happen to the deployment manifest file? In the deployment manifest file, automatically the build number will change. You see, updated, the commit message, you see, updated image to build 3. Just now only, you see, earlier it was build -2, now it's build 3. Since the changes happened in the manifest file, ArgoCD will notice the changes happened in the manifest file, and then ArgoCD also will do the updates. You can see the new, a few seconds ago, you see them? Some errors are coming, but end of the day, I think application is working fine. No problem with that. Maybe these errors will get resolved very soon. No issues. So once everything is good, now let us just refresh it and then let's see what changes are there. I'm just zooming in, zooming out. Let me just refresh it. Are we able to notice any major changes? I believe still crash loop backup it is showing. Let me just verify the pods. So kubectl get pods. It is showing crash loop backoff. So let's verify what is the problem. kubectl describe deploy, and then I'll give the deployment name movie-app. Let's see what is the real issue. Scaled replicas it. Okay, this is all fine. Okay, let's see about the pods. kubectl get pods. I believe that is the reason why we are unable to see the updated application. Let's verify that. So kubectl describe pod and then pod name. Okay, I have taken the running pod thing. So let me clear the screen. So let me take the crash loop back of pods. So kubectl describe pod. So probably image might not be getting updated properly. Let's see it in bit. kubectl describe pod, and then I'll give the pod name. Enter. Back of starting container app. Warning, kubelet pulling image build to pulled, successfully pulled. Okay, this is all fine. Back of starting field container. So it is pulling the image, but why it's not kubectl pods. So they're going crash loop backup and it is trying to restart. Let me just cross check it. So the main reason was with the code actually. So let me show you where actually the error was happening. So kubectl get pods. because in code there was one mistake. So I didn't corrected that one. I will show it now itself. kubectl and then describe log. Let's take these are the old pods. So now we need the logs of any one of these pods. So the command to get that pod is kubectl logs and then pod name. Sorry. So kubectl logs and then the pod name. Let's take any one of the pods which are getting failed. So we'll get to know that in the file called app.py in line 11197, in line 1197. So here you can see the spelling mistake. You can see the spelling mistake. So it is showing, it should be RETURN, but it is actually RTURN. So that was the mistake from this one only. So the code point. So this is where you can see it was clearly showing in line 1197. So that's where this code is, line 1197. So return. The spelling should be RETURN. So let's edit that directly in the repository itself. Okay, so that you will also get to know. So RTURN, that's where it was there. So let's get that to return. Let me also cross verify if there are any other such no issues. So let's commit the changes, commit it. I believe that's the only change that was there because it was clearly showing in this particular line only the issue was there. So now let's build the pipeline one more time because it was a code issue only, not with the pipeline part. Okay, that's why they are going, the application, I mean, the pods are going crash loop back off. Now probably we might be able to see these pods will no longer see them. Let's verify it. So the build happened, and then here also the update must have happened to the deployment manifest file. You can see the build 4. This is basically the build 4. You can see that. So it got updated here. So now let's refresh it so that we can see whether the pods are still getting crashed or not. Yeah, you see, yeah, pods container creating few seconds ago. Crash loop back off again. Again, the error is coming. So let's see what is the problem. Again, probably there might be multiple issues. So let me cross check one more time. Yeah, let's get it one more time. So kubectl get pods. So error crash loop back off. So let's get it one more time. Yeah, so let's see the logs one more time. kubectl logs. Let me just verify in which branch I have made that change. Just give me a second. Yeah, in the main branch only. Let's see the logs one more time, no issues. kubectl logs, and then let me take any one of the pods. So line simple demo file app.py line 1199 authentication. Let's see that one. It's all code issue only, so it's not from our end. So let's say developer has made an issue. So let's go to 1199 number, 1199. So let's go to that line. Let's see where is the issue. 1199. So sorry, not this one. 1199, right? This is the one. Simple demo. So, okay, so probably this is where some issue is there. So let's check with ChatGPT. What is the issue here? Let me open ChatGPT here and check. Is there an issue about line in Python code? Let's see whether it will show here. There is an issue. Okay, simple demo. This is the problem. GGL is not defined, so GGL equals to demo, or when would be it valid? Okay. Syntax is valid, but runtime error. If not, remove GGL. If meant as a code. Okay, let's do one thing. So I have the complete code probably in my local. So let me get feature B branch code. Let's get the code from here. So let's see 1199 line one more time just to cross verify. 1119. Okay, so here we have a different one. So, okay, fine. So let me take this entire thing and let me directly paste it in the repository itself directly. But this entire thing will be done in the local only. So instead of raising a pull request, everything again one more time. So I'm just doing directly here itself. Probably let me also check here because this is the code which you are going to work. So this code also should not get any error as such. Double one time. Okay, so I believe here we didn't get anything. So let's see what happens. Let me just refresh. These pods were created 3 minutes ago. So now new pod should spin up. Containers are creating. Yeah, now it's working. You see, now it's working. The containers are in the running state. Right, that was the issue. It was mostly with the code only, so nothing from DevOps side. It is from developer side. But here we are the developer and we are the DevOps engineer. So right, you see the old pods are getting terminated, new pods got spin up. Now you refresh the page, you will be seeing the updated version of the application. Let me just keep it a little like this. Yeah, refresh it, you will see new version. You see that? Are you able to notice the new version in the application? So some different features, some reviews. Earlier, these review features, these are all things were not there. Now you can see the review features are there. Users can give the reviews in the application. And then some products were listed as out of stocks, wish list product. So earlier we were seeing only cart. Now you are seeing some other items also. So you can wish list the items. You can see added to wish list. You can add to cart. So the items will get added to the cart. So like this, the application has got updated. Okay. So this is how, if you want, you can submit the review also. So just write some review and then write something and then submit it. So the review is also submitted. So this is what happens with the updated ones. So this is how the multi-branch pipeline with Jenkins and GitOps approach has been deployed. This is a pure real-time thing. I know that it has taken some more time than what was expected because of this troubleshooting and all these things. But anyway, I believe you have learned the troubleshooting scenarios also with this particular deployment. So now let us go to the second part of this application, that is the monitoring part. So here what we need to do, we need to do the monitoring of the application. So for that, we need to install Prometheus and Grafana, and then we'll monitor the cluster level resources. So I have already kept those commands in the documentation itself. This document I'll upload in the GitHub repository only, so you can check it when you are accessing. So it will be there as a text file. Okay, this document will be there as a text file. So I'm adding a Prometheus repository, and then I'm just creating a namespace called monitoring namespace, because in that namespace, I'm going to deploy everything. So I'm installing Prometheus here in the namespace called monitoring. Once I install that one, then we should be able to see the monitoring namespace pods, like whatever pods that we are going to have in the monitoring namespace, all those pods will be showing up. So let the Prometheus gets installed. So in this Prometheus stack, you can see I'm installing the Prometheus stack. In this Prometheus stack itself, we'll be having the Prometheus, Alert Manager, Grafana, Node Exporter, and the Cube State Metrics. Everything will be available there itself. So you don't have to explicitly do anything there. So, but if you want to access Grafana, okay, if you want to access Grafana, Grafana will also be there in that same Prometheus stack. Grafana also will be there. So if you want to access Grafana, you need to patch the service. Suppose if you do kubectl get all -n in the monitoring namespace, monitoring. So in this namespace, you can see the service type, which is for Grafana. You can see monitoring Grafana, it's a cluster IP. So we need to patch that service to load balancer or the node port. So that also I have given the command. So you can just patch that service. Yeah, you can see that also I have mentioned here. So Prometheus, that stack will consist of everything. So let's patch that service. So let me patch it to load balancer so that we'll get the load balancer URL. So kubectl get service or get all you can do, and you can see the load balancer. So the load balancer is spinning up. So let's take this load balancer URL. Let's go here, paste it, hit enter. Again, load balancer will take some time to spin up. So let us wait for a couple of seconds. I'll just pause the video and I'll come back so that the load balancer, the Grafana can be accessed. So this is the entire project. So I'll do one thing. I'll just update the text file here itself. So let me update the document also here. So let me create a new file because this is what you're going to access. So I'll just call it as document.txt. So in this document only, I'm going to keep all these commands. Okay. So I'll just paste it. Commit changes. Right. So complete document will be available here itself, the repository structure, the whatever the instructions I have said. But the remaining things you have to configure. Okay, you have to configure a few things there. So as we have configured in the video directly, those steps I haven't mentioned in the document. So you have to refer the video and get those things. So you can see Grafana is spinning up. Once Grafana is available, then we can get the password for Grafana. By default, the username will be admin, but the password will be as a secret. So we have to get that password. You see this one, kubectl creates get secret namespace. And if you do this one, you will be able to see the password. This is fine. Or otherwise, I have given the same command here also. So you can take this command and you can just execute here. So let me clear the screen. Paste it, you will get the Grafana dashboard password. So this is your password. Just before root, whatever is there, copy that entire thing, and username is admin, password is whatever you have copied from there, paste it, login. Now you will be able to see the Grafana. So as I said, in that Prometheus stack, there are default dashboards which will be available. You don't have to configure any additional dashboards. If you want, you can import the dashboards. That's completely up to your requirement. But as far as this project is concerned, you don't have to go with any additional dashboards. So if you just click on dashboards here, there are some default dashboards for nodes, pods, deployments, clusters, everything. Default dashboards will be there. You see alert manager dashboard, API server, and then namespaces. That's basically pods, workloads in the namespace, pods. If you just click on each resource, you will be able to see how many pods are running this, their usage, every information. You can also customize it with data source with related to default or with related to Prometheus also you can customize. And on node wise also you can see. So here we have two nodes, right? Two worker nodes. So you can select both of the worker nodes and you can see the information there. So it will take some time because everything should come, right? So it will take usually some time. But anyway, they'll spin up. End of the day, they'll show up the things. So data source default, if you change these data sources accordingly, you'll see the resource information. So just refresh it, you'll be able to see the. So this way you can do monitoring of the application as well by looking into the dashboards in Grafana. So let's go to dashboards again and let's verify some other resources. So these are all things are there. So let's go nodes not required. Let's go with pods, networking pods, namespace pods. These are all compute resources, workloads. So let's see this pod information, compute resources pod information, and you will get to know the resources. So if you have the namespaces, you can customize the namespaces also. If you keep it to default, you'll get to know. You can see this entire thing. Okay. Just refresh it and wait. You will get to know the complete results. You can see the every information about this thing. Okay. So that is how you can do the monitoring of this application also. No need to manually import anything because these are all by default configured in the Prometheus stack. That's what I have done. So if you go to pods, any workloads also, you can verify them. You can see the resources here. Okay, so which pod is using that which workload, that's deployment workloads and all those things. which workload is using what, how much type of resources, every information you can monitor it here. It's very simple. So that is what the complete monitoring part. If you want to set any alerts also, you can set the alerting rules by creating in the Gmail, you can create the app password and you can set the alerting rules also. That probably you can do it, or I'll show it in some other upcoming videos. Okay. So this is all about the project. So before I close, this is the repository which you can access. So whatever I have done, same things, if you try to do it, you will be able to successfully deploy the application into the Kubernetes cluster. So here the main part of this application deployment compared to my previous projects, this project is totally different because here we are doing it like a more real time where we are seeing from the developer's endpoint and also the DevOps engineer's endpoint. Once developer commits the code, the Jenkins pipeline will get triggered and the manifest file will get updated. And then whenever there is an update in the manifest file, the ArgoCD will trigger the pipeline and then it will update the code, and then updated pods will be available. When updated, then the pods are updated. Basically, when the deployments are updated, automatically we'll be able to see the new version of the application. So it's been a long time that you have been watching this video, and I believe you have learned something new in this project compared to my old projects. So if you are new to this channel, I would recommend you to look after the old videos, which I have shown the deployment into the Kubernetes clusters, deployment into the Docker containers, monitoring using Prometheus, Grafana, and all of those videos also you can refer. And this is completely new from whatever the videos that I have uploaded so far. So I believe this video has helped you or will be helping you in your DevOps learning journey. If you have liked this video, so please post your feedback on LinkedIn, and please don't forget to tag me on LinkedIn. And also you can comment in the comment box about your opinion, or if you have any thoughts to share, you feel free to share. I'll be happy to take that as an input for my upcoming videos. So thank you all. Thank you once again. Thanks for watching till the end of this video. Thank you.